Welcome to the My Haunt Life podcast.
Hello and welcome to the My Haunt Life podcast. I'm Mike.
And I'm Russell.
And this is a very special episode. We are lucky to have Anna and Marlee from the Shine On Collective here. And they are going to give us an interview about the Shine On Collective, their shows, and all of that fun stuff. So sit back, relax, and enjoy our interview.
Hi, my name is Anna. I am one of the co-founders of Shine On, and I tend to do most of the script writing.
And I'm Marlee. I'm the other co-founder of Shine On, and I take more of the director side of things.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And could you just give us a little bit of history of how Shine On happened and all of that fun stuff?
Yeah, well...
Marlee kind of got us going, actually.
It's a funny thing. We met each other because we both sing barbershop.
Yeah, we both were singing in a barbershop chorus. And barbershop music, it's just a four-part harmony, like a barbershop quartet. I don't sing in the chorus anymore, but I still sing in a quartet. But yeah, it's a women's barbershop harmony chorus that we've been singing in. Marlee still sings in it for how many years have you been doing it?
3 years.
Wow. Yeah. So yeah, we met through that.
Yeah, and I knew that Anna was a writer. And I'd been interested in immersive theater ever since I saw Sleep No More in Boston. That was a while ago. I don't even know. Whenever they first came to the U.S.
They've been running a few years, so...
Yeah. Like 5 years ago, maybe?
Oh, probably.
Yeah, more than that, maybe. Yeah, and so I knew that the Hollywood Fringe Festival was happening and that it could be a cool venue to try something, to start something new. And so I approached Anna and said, hey, I have this crazy idea of trying to do something immersive. Would you be interested? And I thought she was going to say no, but she didn't.
Yeah, we met at a Starbucks and started talking about like what we would want to do or what we want to create. We didn't think of creating like a whole theater company yet. We just thought of doing this one show and trying it out. And then I had this interest in like the horror and haunt background. So that sort of segues me or kind of overlaps even with immersive theater. So I started talking about like shows I'd seen, and Marlee would talk about shows she's seen and Sleep No More and how we were really both interested in creating immersive stories. So it really all started with just, let's try this one project out for the Fringe Festival and see. And then I feel like midway into working on that first project, we started talking about other things we'd like to keep doing and decided to just keep continuing on with it.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Actually, Mike and I first became aware of you, Anna, because of your interest in haunts, I think.
Yeah.
We both encountered you just meeting at events, meeting at alone shows. I think we all just kept crossing paths.
Yeah, it seems to happen in that world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty frequently.
So the Fringe show that you're referring to was called The Truth.
Yeah.
Yes.
And full disclosure here, I was actually involved a little bit with The Truth.
Right. Yeah, very. You were super helpful, actually.
Thank you very much. Because I have a lot of immersive experience as I patronizing them. And yes, I've seen Sleep No More. I've seen Then She Fell in New York. I've seen other immersive shows in various places. But when we first started talking about The Truth, I think you were just looking for like another pair of eyes. And
yeah, we asked you to sort of help us with the whole immersive thing, the whole like
moving people through, the logistics.
Well, the thing that surprised me, and Mike and I talked about this after Mike went through The Truth, is for an initial project, for just starting out, for the Fringe Festival, which is an experimental venue anyway, which was an awesome place for The Truth to have a home. Yeah. That's an ambitious project.
It was a really ambitious project.
And I want to ask the naive question of, did you guys even know what you were getting into?
A little. I think it hit us more and more the more we were working on The Truth. How many logistical things you just had to work out.
I feel like in terms of logistics, my background's theater, so I've directed shows before and that sort of thing. So in terms of, it was a really big cast.
True, very large.
That we knew going into it. I think that the thing we didn't consider maybe being such an issue was like the sound part of it.
Right.
That was probably like our biggest struggle, and looking back on it, Like,
we've actually avoided too much cell phone use since. So during the truth, the audience went through with their cell phone and headphones, and they were playing different tracks. But that led to a few problems. The tracks had to stop and play at the right times, and we had to kind of direct that. People's phones would lose connection or service, of course.
Right.
Sometimes we had MP3 player options for people who didn't have their cell phones.
And those would turn off and stuff.
Yeah, those would do strange things at times because we went for just bulk, cheap MP3 players. So there were a lot of logistical things. We tried to run all that tech stuff during rehearsals, but there were a lot of logistical things. Then being in a public space, which wasn't as problematic as I was afraid it was going to be. Going into it, one of my first concerns was, oh my gosh, we're going to do this whole thing. We did all of the truth just on the sidewalks outside.
Because in Hollywood, you don't need a street performance, what do you call it, license or whatever.
Yeah, you
I
don't
didn't
need a
realize
permit
that.
or anything.
Yeah, you don't.
Yeah, so we got insurance and everything, and just had the performers act outside. And I remember really worrying about that on the sidewalks in Hollywood, and
Actually, it was one of the first concerns I raised to you guys. Was like, and I know during the rehearsal for The Truth, you talked with the cast about what happens. And there's one character in particular who was, I think, just because of the nature of the character, was very open to people coming up to him.
Definitely.
And
Yes.
joining the scenes because he was the boisterous, loud guy, and people engaged with him. And, he had this charm about him that people on the street was like, hey, this looks like a fun, interesting guy.
Right.
Let's stop and chat. And they would interrupt scenes. I think there was one character in particular that happened to multiple times.
There was, definitely. And the others not as much as him. He got it the most. Yeah.
Well, maybe just because of the scene that I was in, it was sort of fun to have outside people watching or sort of involved.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they weren't really involved in the show per se, but they sort of created, I don't know, a different element to it because people would because I was dancing, so people would just stop and watch, but they weren't hearing the track, so they sort of got like half of what was happening. Whereas if you were watching the show, you had like a deeper element of what was happening. One time I had a guy stop and he created like I don't know what it was, like a little like pebble shrine.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, and he was like, it was inspired by your dancing. It was very interesting.
That's awesome. That's the kind of thing that the immersive theater can do.
Yeah.
And, like, inspire other people. That's wonderful to hear that.
Yeah, and some of those moments, I mean, we talk about the logistical problems and the ambitiousness of it, but I mean, there was a lot that, really worked for us. I mean, in some ways too, I think it was cool that we started with all of these elements that we decided to just explore and play with. I mean, the cast was great. Like, I'm really excited about how that show went over. And some of those, I mean, there's that fear of being outside and people interrupting you or people harassing your actors, but there is sort of that like magic of passersby doing something like that or seeing what was going on and trying to ask someone, what is this? Like, what's happening? And that the sort of phenomenon feeling of what was just happening in this public kind of otherwise mundane, normal space.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's also some nature of, if you see a group of people walking down the street, there's an innate curiosity of, I wonder what they're up to.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think you caught some of that. Like, people like, I want to join in.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, there were definitely a lot of people asking us, I think, about that one. There's a lot of curiosity about that show, so that was neat.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to how you started, we're jumping around a little bit, but Marlee, when you first had this idea and you went to speak to Anna about it, did you know that she was also interested in immersive theater and in the theater world, or was it just, I really don't know who else to talk to, but she seems the closest?
I knew that she was into haunts, but honestly, I didn't know that much about haunts in LA. I didn't realize like how like theatrical they can be. Like all I knew at the time was like haunted house, like, and so I was like, oh well. And I still thought of it as sort of on the same in the same realm, I guess, but I didn't realize even how theatrical they are here. Like, I haven't done Delusion yet, but I've heard that it's very theatrical. I have a ticket.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah, we're going in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Excellent. Very glad to hear that.
And yeah, so I had that knowledge about her. So I was like, oh, this could be a cool mix, like her haunt stuff and my theater background. Yeah.
And you had mentioned that you weren't really into haunts earlier.
Yeah.
And Russell earlier mentioned that we know Anna from the horror and haunt world. Do you guys ever clash? Because I definitely see elements of horror in it. And if you're not really into that, I mean, are there ideas that Anna would write or come to you with and be like, ooh, that's I don't know about that.
I don't think so, because I feel like she doesn't write just like, oh, I'm just going to write this thing because they'll be scared. Like, because like, oh, this thing will jump out and they'll be like, ah, or whatever. I feel like her writing's more truthful, and I think that's sort of what we like connected on, is that we can write something scary that's like actually about a character, like that's based in reality for the character, for the story.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have talked about that a lot too,
Yeah.
About trying to avoid, we're really narrative based, I feel like, with everything we've done so far, and that's been a big theme. So, of course, I have a tendency to write things into the script that are creepy, especially for Devoted, which we kind of went into that with me saying this is going to be dark. That just tends to be just more and more too over the years. I feel like I used to be really into horror, but I wouldn't write it, and now I've just kind of crossed the threshold into feeling more comfortable writing it. But I know we have talked a lot about just keeping it very narrative based. So a lot of the horrific or sometimes even just disturbing or darker elements we try to really justify in the story, and make it just part of what feels natural for the characters as much as we can.
Certainly that shines through in Devoted.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Speaking of Devoted, it's not currently going on, but it's current. You just finished your third chapter of Devoted, and the fourth is coming up in October. And I was wondering if you could tell people a little bit more about that story and why they should go in October.
Oh, totally. So Devoted is about a young girl who is in love with you and with you. Whoever you are going to the show, she is in love with you. And she's been in love with you, I guess, for some time, you find out. So we created a series of shows to some extent, but all of them would stand alone. So if anyone is curious or wants to jump in October, you don't have to have seen any of the previous shows to understand. You'll even get some emails or some messages that will make sure that anything you should know you're caught up on, or you'll get kind of a feel for what you're going into. So it's a series of shows. We did a couple of very brief encounters with our main character. Her name is Kara. And we did these little one-on-ones at Midsummer Scream and Scare LA conventions this summer to introduce people to the character, and she would speak to them behind this little whatever it is, screen that we set up at our booth. And she would pull them aside privately and express her feelings to them in her way. And then we had that kind of lead into Forever, which was our third installment of the Devoted series. Forever, we just offered to people at the conventions. The October show is open to anybody. But for Forever, at our booth at the conventions, we got people's email addresses who said they were interested in seeing more of the show. I think we were kind of test running it a little bit just to see what the interest would be, what the audience would be. And also, making sure we had an audience who was interested in like continuing this story and who would be interested in maybe coming back in October. So I think Forever was very much kind of a demo, and maybe even a little bit.
Sort of, I would say it's like an introduction to what we're doing in October.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think so.
Sort of like a prologue or something.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's kind of like a prologue to where the rest of the show would be going.
Well, for our listeners, and also I find it interesting that you've titled each of these, the overall title is Devoted.
Right.
But each of your segments are Always and Together and Forever, and it's all words associated with long-term devotion.
Right.
And when you meet Kara, when you encounter Kara, she is so passionate about her feelings and expressing herself toward you as the person who's coming to see her. It's like all the titles work very well. So what is the title of the final piece in October?
It's just Devoted.
It's just Devoted? Okay.
Yeah.
I think you said prologue. Forever was about a 30-minute piece, and you not only met Kara, you met members of her family, and you were given a lot of information. So is it a direct continuation? You said that nobody has to have gone through the previous 3 shows.
Yeah.
Right.
But is it a continuation of the same premise, or would you rather not disclose that?
I would say it is a
okay.
continuation. You'll see some of the same characters again in the October show, a couple of new ones added into that. But the same kind of
yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely the same kind of idea. So Kara, she loves you and she wants you to, to connect with her and for you to understand her. And a part of that for her, I think, is showing you where she's coming from.
She's trying to fill this void from some trauma in her childhood with your love, and by her doing that, it sort of reveals more about her past and sort of puts you in the middle of that.
Yeah, directly in the middle of that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So the October show will continue to do that.
Yes, more so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think a difference we were talking about is that in Forever, you were yourself the whole time. You came in and she loved you, and you were just, you were just Russell, you're just Mike. But in the final show, you're not always just yourself.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. You're placed into a lot of her memories, and sometimes you're yourself. Sometimes you might find out you're
not
somebody
yourself.
else in that memory. So it's really the idea of her kind of really integrating. Like she keeps saying, I want you to be part of me. I want you to be part of me. And I think she is really kind of making you a part of her life, whether or not you want that.
Yes.
She certainly shares of herself.
She does.
That is a
bad.
no spoiler moment. Let's just say she definitely offers a piece of herself to you.
Yes,
It's a
she
spoiler
definitely
without being a
does.
spoiler.
Yeah.
Now, for being such a new company and being at Midsummer Scream and Scare LA, I'm assuming those were your first conventions as Shine On?
Yeah, shine on and making a presence like that, definitely.
So seeing, we came by first thing to sign up to do it. And, when we came back, it seemed like maybe like an hour later, you were sold out for the day. And
that was amazing.
As your first convention, you're already sold out like that early on. Like, what does that feel like? Like, do you, at that point, did you we did it, we have something here?
I think we definitely had that moment
Yeah,
there.
I think so too.
We definitely went in not knowing, again, like I mentioned, we were kind of almost test running, especially with the conventions too, seeing are people interested in this? And these were horror and haunt and Halloween conventions that I've been to before. Well, Midsummer was new, but I've been to Scare LA and people behind Scare LA are into Midsummer and all of that. But I feel like we're doing something that's part immersive theater, sometimes scary or dark, but it's not a traditional haunt at all, of course, or a haunted house. I wouldn't want someone to go in with that expectation because they would get something completely weird and different from what they might be thinking. So I was curious to see what the reaction would be to what we were doing. I think I even joked our booth was pretty modest. We had a screen, we had our booth, we had our flyers, we had a screen behind us. Yeah, sometimes we were beside, I think the first convention we were next to some big elaborate store setups and stuff. And we had this little kind of screened off area. We had white roses out, and I wondered how many people would just be like, what the hell is that doing here? What is this? And the show does get very dark. I think it is appropriate for the season.
Yes.
It has a lot of dark elements. It might not be straight up horror. It's not necessarily a murder or ghost story or types of things that people associate with it, but I think it's definitely in that ballpark or that arena where you experience things that are intense and scary. I feel like Kara actually, this is sort of a side tangent, but I actually feel like Kara for me was a play off of some of the female villains in stories like Misery or The Loved Ones is one of my favorites, or Audition. There's this obsessed woman figure who's just obsessed with someone to the point of it being harmful. And I kind of wanted to create kind of a spin on that because I think Kara is kind of obsessive, but you feel for her. A lot of our audience really feels for her and feels sad for her, and I think feels a little torn between, am I supposed to be really creeped out by this person, or am I supposed to be sympathetic?
This is a tangent, but I have to say I was a little surprised that I don't think we had a single audience that was like, no, I don't love you. Get away from me, or something like that, which I sort of was maybe expecting, but in Forever, everyone was like, yes, Kara, like, I love you too. Like, everyone's very devoted.
People are
also.
very responsive to her and her strange love.
It's an interesting psychological thing.
Yeah.
That everyone responded well to being loved.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It was really cool, actually, to see how people responded. Like, it actually felt like, as dark as the show gets, there is this sort of, and I think actually there is a little bit of a positive light within all of the darkness of the show. But it was interesting to see that it seemed to have this positive impact on people, where they did feel this connection or this love for her, and that was really cool.
Well, I think there's an intensity to that expression of love from her that I don't think, even if you are madly in love with someone, even if you're in a relationship with someone, that intensity it comes and goes. So to be thrown into a situation where you have someone approaching you that intensely, and please, you have to give credit to your performance.
Oh my gosh, she's amazing.
Yeah.
Trish, our actress. I guess maybe I should just call her Kara and not break that. But yeah, she's incredible, and she went to the conventions with us. She did Forever. She's doing this next show. I mean, we basically asked her if she would be interested, and told her this will be like 6 months of being involved in this show and playing this character. And she has been down. She's awesome. She helped us develop Kara's backstory. She's a huge hand in that. She really has become this character, which is so cool.
Oh, it's very clear. The intensity from her is amazing. It's a wonder to behold. It's really special.
And everything you just said, it kind of backs up everything that I was seeing and hearing, because as soon as Midsummer Scream ended and I was talking to people, and these are people that aren't necessarily into haunts or really just starting to get into theater. All of them were like, I'm going to Scare LA and I need to go to the Shine On booth first to sign up.
So
So
cool.
you guys became a destination like just after one weekend. And that's like so amazing to see.
That was awesome. Yeah, I think when people started getting into it and people were really into like filling up slots, and I mean, it was just really exciting to see, okay, people do like it. Awesome.
Yeah.
We can keep going. People get it.
Well,
that
also
was really
immediately
exciting.
the social media response to you guys. Like the fact that you mentioned the white roses. Like how many people Instagrammed the flowers and Instagrammed the letters that they were given during the shows at the conventions. Like the social media response, I think was a little out of the ordinary. And I think it's because of the intensity. It's because of the emotion that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like no, people weren't jumping out and scaring you, but you were disturbing.
Right.
And-
That was cool.
And you certainly at the conventions, that's a welcome thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good crowd for us.
Yeah.
They want to be freaked out. There were actually a few people, we had a couple of bad reactions to it that surprised me. A few people wouldn't go in. At Midsummer and at Scare
At
LA.
Midsummer, someone left during the beginning of it.
Yeah, someone walked out in the middle pretty early on.
I think she just felt like really uncomfortable by being so intimately, I don't know, approached by Kara.
I think that's the word, probably, is intimate.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but for the most part, I mean, that was the right crowd. They want to get involved. They want to get immersed. I think horror fans are like just naturally immersive theater fans. Even if you're into like the haunted, whether it's a haunted house, which is some form of immersive theater in its own, or all the other like horror simulation experiences and haunts that have come up since. A lot of people who are into that, they want to be in a story, which is cool. It's definitely what I wanted, or still want, when I go to shows like this.
You mentioned a couple bad reactions, but have you had any reactions that are similar to Kara, where they become obsessed with her and maybe not realize there's a line there?
Borderline,
bit,
almost, with a few. I mean, no one who's crossed the line or been inappropriate.
I think everyone that's doing it is just like immersing themselves in the story. They're not. I think they're playing their character, which is really fun.
Yeah.
For us.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not a
That's what
bad
we
thing at
wanna
all.
see,
I love it. Yeah. No one's taking. I did worry about that a little bit. Like, what are we getting Trish into? Who's signing up for it? Like, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. For the most part, really, all of the audience for Forever was wonderful. They were just amazing, cool people. But yeah, people got really into it. some people brought Cara gifts, which was really cool. Yeah, and I think that was really exciting for our actress, for her to like get things that people like might have made or brought. And a few people have like actually reached out to her. Cara is on social media now and emails and contacts people sometimes sporadically. But a lot of people have actually sent her emails and love letters and poetry and all kinds of stuff that people have like sent out or reached out to her for, which is really cool. It's cool to see people, they're playing along and they're getting into it. Yeah. I think at one point, some of our cast members, we had to talk to them about how, no, I think they're playing along. Because I think it wasn't Cara, but some of the other cast members involved in the show were like, is this okay? Like, or they keep asking if she's safe after like her scene, or they, I don't know what to answer. Like, do they know it's fake? And I'm like, it's okay. They're
I think I did
responding.
That. I did that at the very end of the show because you at the end of the last show, you didn't end up with Cara. You ended up with someone else. And I asked.
Right.
I sent a message back to Cara through them.
Right.
I said, please let her know this is how I'm feeling, and please let her know this is everything. I like just please let her know.
Yeah.
And completely, and it was not, I wasn't being obsessed. It was just like,
oh yeah, not at all.
I was left with so much emotion after the show that I wanted to. I think I was looking for closure of some kind.
Yeah.
Which that show really didn't offer you.
It did not. Yeah. And we loved that. Like when we had people who really responded like that. I mean, I feel like for us it made the night. Like, I mean, when people were into it, and I feel like too when people got sent her emails or letters or contacted her, some people did after the show. I mean, we thought it was really, really cool.
Excellent.
So yeah. So I guess when I say borderline, it means like yes, but they're playing along. But like there are people who gave that reaction technically, but no one who worried us.
Cool. So when people have that reaction and they do bring her gifts, do you give her wiggle room for improv, or is it pretty much stick to the script and?
Right. She has some wiggle room to improvise or respond to them. Like we still have scenes to get to, or they'll still, have to be moved along. And we're on kind of the tight clock schedule timing-wise to make sure our shows stay on time. But she can respond to them.
I mean, she responds, but she also has a lot of things that she wants to tell them.
Right. Mm-hmm. So she'll definitely respond, and she'll definitely adjust. I mean, I feel like the show and the mood of it can even change based on who the audience is, with all immersive shows.
We could hear the shows from where we were, and I could tell, I mean, it's very slight, but I could tell that her mood would change based on who she was playing off of, like who the audience was.
Right.
Because, people would come in different places. Like, some would be very, like, talkative with her and very, like, upbeat, and some would be just very, like, serious, like, in it, not saying very much. And her tone would change based on who was there.
Yeah. And some people wanted to tell her things. I know some people, she'll ask you some questions during the show, and a lot of people answer kind of briefly, but some people would go into telling her a story or an anecdote or sharing something with her, and she's pretty responsive to that, and you would end up in the same place, but she might add to the conversation depending on what you gave her.
Mike, did you bring anything for Cara, or did you?
I didn't.
Oh, it's okay. She still loves you.
He has no heart.
She should have brought stuff for me. Just kidding.
The one adjustment, she made a quick adjustment in my show because I, at one of the conventions, I'd been given a letter, and I had the letter with me, and then during the show, she mentioned something that was very specifically in my letter, and so I pulled the letter out, and I said, oh, wait, yeah, I remember you shared this with me, I remember this, and she immediately incorporated it into the next part of her monologue.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, that's right. I could trust you. And she just went for it.
Yeah.
And it was and you're right. It was just a minor adjustment, but it completely drew me farther into the show.
Yeah. She told us about that moment too. She really dug that. I think she really liked when people gave her something to work with like that, or gave her some little extra personalized thing that was cool.
Yeah.
You should have gave her the bear cat. And cross the two streams.
No, we don't cross the streams. You're not supposed to cross the streams. So I can't mix tension experience with.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like tension helped us. I mean, no, we're just the little fish in the big pond with them, but a lot of people from tension sort of got what we were doing with her social media kind of stuff.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, that makes sense.
Totally.
And sort of being more involved with her, like, through that. And I think that was because of Tension.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Tension people are awesome.
Yeah.
I think Shine On is actually tapping into something very early. I think you guys have formed Shine On Collective at a great time, because I think Tension Experience, I think other things coming to Los Angeles are going to make people realize that there is a playground out there that they can really interact with. And rather than being just the docile, like, oh, I'm going to passively sit somewhere and have a theatrical experience. And that's certainly not what you guys are about.
Right.
So, and how do you feel that, like, working with the truth, starting there, and then you also did a show at Zombie Joe's Underground, which was called One of Us.
Yeah.
And that was not necessarily immersive, even though there was some immersive elements to it and things were occurring during the show around you. Like, how do you see yourselves developing?
I think we're definitely heading more in the immersive direction.
Yeah.
Overall, I think I feel like this show in particular has been where we've really been hitting our stride.
Yeah.
I feel like Devoted is really something that shows like what kinds of shows we want to make, like more than anything. I mean, The Truth was really cool. And it was our first one, and I think it turned out really well and had these really cool moments that actually have influenced a lot of what we've done since. But I feel like by the time we got to this one, then we did One of Us. It was sort of squeezed in the middle of these two immersive shows.
Yeah.
It was a busy summer, which also, had those elements and was us kind of playing with, I think, the Black Box Theater space at ZJU. And then, moving into this one, which is not in the theater at all again, you go to Kara's home and playing with that and playing around with how we want to tell the story and our style. I feel like we're building an aesthetic in a way that we really are feeling is like the right direction for us. So I feel like this show in particular signifies like the kinds of shows that we'll probably continue to make for the most part.
Yeah, I think the cool part about this show that we didn't do it with One of Us because it was more of a theater show, and we couldn't really do with The Truth because we felt like we couldn't. There were certain limitations because we were outside in the public.
True.
Right.
So with this show, I feel like we're getting to explore more with certain. I don't know what the right word is.
I know what you mean, though. Yeah.
Different styles, different techniques, different. I just feel like it's playing, like giving the audience more room to play within it.
Yeah, there are definitely limitations to being in a public space for an entire show. We don't want someone to actually call the police or to potentially get hurt, or there are pedestrians walking by still during your show. It's such an uncontrolled environment. So I think, now I think we're more free to just explore whatever we want to do. Now that we're working, indoors, like other people normally do. But for us, it's like, cool. We can stage whatever we want now.
There are lights.
Yeah, we can change lighting and stuff. What?
And will this show end the Kara storyline?
No, we haven't really talked about that.
Yeah. I've given it some thought. It largely will, but I mean, I wouldn't be completely opposed to somehow bringing Devoted or something back at some point. But yeah, we haven't really made a finalized decision. But it will largely, right now it's the final chapter.
We don't have anything else on the table for Kara's story.
Exactly. I mean, I'm sure we'll move into something else after this. But if we ever return to Kara's story, I would never say never.
Oh, of course not.
Right.
That's understandable.
Right.
And do you have any announcements, any future plans that you can reveal yet?
Nothing that we can reveal yet.
Okay.
Nothing
right.
Nothing that solid yet. But we're definitely talking about next year and bouncing ideas around still.
Excellent. Glad to hear it.
So we were just talking about One of Us, and that had some immersiveness in it, but it was more of a traditional show, like you were saying. But what did you like? Do you like doing those better? Are those types of shows still in your future, or do you want to go completely immersive going forward? Because we loved it.
Oh,
like
thanks.
still. So like
Cool,
even though like it was more of a traditional like sit and watch. And by the way, that character, like I wanted to punch him in the face. So if you were looking for emotion, like you so got
The
it.
audience?
Because,
Except for
yeah.
the guest in the
Oh,
audience.
yeah. Yeah. It's
It's like, oh my god. It was like, dude, like
That actor was awesome
Yeah.
too.
It was really fun
natural.
seeing. You could tell when the audience, I mean, the rest of the audience, was like, "What the heck, this guy?" And then when they were like, "Oh wait, he's part of it,"
Right.
And that's one of the biggest confusing parts for me for like immersive theater, because I want to play a part, but I also don't know if I should turn around and tell him to shut the hell
Yeah.
up, you know? So there's like that
Right.
weird balance that you have to maintain as an audience
yeah.
member.
Yeah, that was the thing about this show. I feel like, yes, you were sitting in an audience, but you were the audience in a different, like, I sort of thought of it as a different, like, world almost that this freak show was in. So you were like the different world audience and not this world audience.
Right.
So in that way, it was, I don't know.
There's a little bit of that
You
show
were-
within
you
the
were-
show
yeah,
elements.
exactly.
Yeah.
You were playing a character, but maybe you felt more restricted because you were sitting in an audience.
Actually,
Right.
that's probably part of it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you were in the conventional theater setting
Yeah.
where you're often told that you need to be there and be quiet. So,
Right.
And for clarification for people listening to the podcast, one of us was, you basically sat through a sideshow performance, a freak show performance, and there was a heckler at one point, which is the character Mike is referring to, who literally overtook the show at one point in a rather obnoxious manner. I guess it would be fair to say.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's fair.
So, one thing about one of us, and it's hard to discuss theme because, you know, Anna as a writer, like you can't write to theme. You
Right.
can't write theme. You have to write characters, and the themes become
Right.
you
The
know,
theme just kind of comes out of that, I guess you could say, if anything. I don't know, but
something I notice in the work that you two have done together is there seems for me to be the reoccurring concept of being accepted for who you are.
Mm-hmm.
There were certainly elements of it in The Truth.
oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Because a couple of those characters literally asked for acceptance. Like,
Yeah.
am I okay?
Right.
One of the male characters was completely caught up in image and caught up in like what he was visually and what he was, how his image affected others.
Right.
One of us heavily hit that.
Oh, yeah, I could see what you mean.
And actually in a very poignant, sad way at certain times. And certainly you see it in Kara. Like, so, you know, like I said, I know you can't write theme. It comes out of your work naturally, but do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Oh, sure. You know, I hadn't really connected those three in that way before, so now I'm all like psychoanalyzing myself. Like, what does that mean? Because I think you're totally right. Now that you're bringing it up, that's cool. You know, I guess I could kind of see that. I feel like, too, there have been some reoccurring elements. We had this idea of like echoing or mimicking someone else. A character did that
started
a
with
lot
The
in The
Truth.
Truth.
Yeah.
And then there were these Siamese twins, and one of them was kind of the more dominant, and the other one was sort of an echoing presence. So I know that there's certain recurring things that I seem to keep bringing up. We even had a moment that's similar, like
that
the,
into Devoted, and I was like, maybe we should.
yeah, I think we tried to
Have
like
her
hold
actually
back a little bit
talk,
on
yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
And then, but there was even a moment in Devoted where there's a mimicking
there's-
happening
that's
Oh
on
yeah,
some level.
you echo Kara.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At a couple of points, really. So I noticed that's like, I feel like I do notice some patterns. I don't know what they are yet,
Okay.
but I know that I'm like, if they feel right, I've been going with them. But I could kind of see that being something that almost feels natural for the types of shows that we're doing, because I feel like so many of our shows are about trying to connect with the audience on this level. Like in one of us, they're often kind of angry at the audience that's sitting there to watch the freak show. But they also, I feel like they're secretly kind of having that moment of like, do you all see me this way? You know, what are you thinking of me? And that's part of what launches their monologues or their scenes or their actions. And in The Truth, there was sort of this idea of, you know, people being special, you know, people having special abilities was a big part of that. And then, people being special in other ways or not special or fitting in. They seem like kind of natural stories to be immersed in, because in a way, with immersive theater, when you sign up, and as someone who is a big junkie, like likes to go to these, you sign up and there's a little bit of a, am I going to get like a special experience? Am I going to feel like I'm getting a special experience? Am I going to feel like I fit in this world? Like, there's a little bit of that just naturally even signing up and going in. So I could kind of see how that could also be a natural theme. The idea of the characters also wanting to know, do you accept me? Am I fitting into your world? And a little bit of that, like, kind of back and forth.
This may be unrelated, but just in terms of theme, and also with, Devoted, the main character is a woman, and our company is like
mostly women. Yeah.
Women.
Yeah.
And all of the shows have featured strong female characters.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that's something sort of unique that we have, is that viewpoint.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's true. I feel like I was almost aiming for that more with Devoted, especially. So I felt like, I think if we were going to do something that's like a horror story, I'm like, this should be, if it was a feminine but still really disturbing like horror story, I thought that would be kind of a different approach. So yeah, that was definitely something. And
it would definitely be a different feeling if a man was the main character.
Right. It would be a different type of
Very
stalker.
different.
Yeah, just by nature.
It'd be Devoted restraining order.
Right.
Right. There would be the same reaction.
Yeah, I think there would be a very different reaction to it, definitely. And a lot of our imagery even, just promoting the show or what you encounter, there's a lot of, again, roses and flowers and it's a little Georgia O'Keeffe even, like the more I think about it.
Oh, wow.
And there's a lot of like femininity or even just the classic romanticism that's often associated with femininity, like kind of involved in it. But it's also, hopefully holds its own with any other horror story. It's not trying to even aim for a female audience at all. It's just putting those elements into a horror story, which I thought was kind of, for me, has been really kind of fun and interesting to play with.
Maybe that is why you're getting the strong social reaction you are, because it's very strong for Kara and for that show, and maybe that's it. Maybe it's because it's definitely a female heavy perspective in. And yes, you said earlier that it's not pure horror, but it is certainly dark material.
Right.
And like you said, Marlee, that is a different vibe. It's a different feel. So, and I think it's certainly what partially appeals to me about it. Yeah, you've touched on it in multiple shows now, and I think I first became aware of it at One of Us.
I can imagine that, right?
And also because I think that's the one example
that
of
was like the main theme of that.
It was the main theme, and also
Right.
it's one of the few times that you've actually had a character, like your character, the female magician.
Oh, right.
She actually addressed the audience that way. She called us out. It's one of those moments in the show where she called us out about what are we doing here? Why are we observing? How are we observing? So, and I know it's got a bit of a twisted path to get to Kara, but Kara is also calling us out a little bit.
Oh, I could totally see that. Yeah. I wrote these also in such a short time span that, I think maybe those connections too could even be coming out of the fact that our schedule has been pretty packed this year, probably more than it would normally be. When I think we were just sort of establishing ourselves and came up with a bunch of projects and have been just kind of hammering them out.
You've been very prolific this year.
Yeah,
a couple people, when we go to stuff, I think it was at Scare LA that Mike and I ended up in a conversation where, wait a minute, they've got Zombie Joe's and they're doing that. Wait, and there's another show in October, and
right.
Wow, they were just cranking it out.
Sort of jumped on all the opportunities.
Yeah. This first year, I think if we thought of an opportunity or an idea that would work, I talked to Zombie earlier in this year when we were still working on The Truth about doing something at his theater, and he's like, hey, I've got some slots open in July or end of July, early August if you want them. And it was like, I'm going to make sure I get you a script really soon. And it was just one of those things where we were like just taking every opportunity or every chance we could get and just creating like crazy. I was writing the script for One of Us while we were working on The Truth, and I was writing the script for Devoted, and writing definitely we were working on rehearsing the convention shows while rehearsing for One of Us and performing One of Us. So that could be part of too some of the thematic overlap. A lot of
we went
those stories
from the convention to One of Us performances.
Yeah, we drove from Scare LA Midsummer to Zombie Joe's for an 11 p.m. show. Yeah, so that could be too. A lot of the thematic overlap and the way that the stories are building off each other right now could be partly just because of how we've ended up timing them. A lot of the characters might actually be echoes of one another because we've just been working on them in such a tight frame. So it's kind of an interesting effect.
So you've had a few shows under your belts now. What are some things that you've learned along the way that you wish you knew when you were doing The Truth?
That's a good question.
Wow, I don't know. I think is keeping the tone consistent was something I think we've grown with a lot. I feel like The Truth had a lot of variety in the types of characters and the types of scenes and how they would feel, which I think was actually kind of a cool thing, especially since the scenes were so separated. You walked from one scene to the next, to the next, and the next, and you kind of like maybe walk a block or half a block, and then a new scene would start. So it kind of allowed us to play with that a bit more. But I think that Devoted, they set up and establish a mood, I feel like, and that is very different, and that stays, like, kind of what you're in for. I feel like The Truth takes some turns. And I think that playing with the control over the tone or the mood of things is something I feel like I've learned a lot about since doing The Truth. And I feel like we let scenes in The Truth just happen so naturally. Okay, this one's kind of becoming funny. Let's keep it that way. Let's go with it. And I think now we've kind of planned a mood when we've planned, like, we need to set people up for what's going to happen later over here. Not just even thematically or in the writing, but just in the feel of it.
I think something that I've been really focused on with Devoted that I sort of learned from The Truth was sort of, I guess, the idea of setting up the story enough so that the audience feels, I don't want to say comfortable, but like enough where they're not just like confused about what's happening, so that they let go of that confusion enough so that they can be in the story, but then leaving enough so that they can still like create some of it for themselves. Like they can still play within it. So it's not like completely set up where there's no room, like, okay, I'm just like following the story, but not leaving too much open-ended so that they're confused about like, who even are these people? Like, what am I supposed to be doing?
Yeah, with The Truth, we played a lot with what we would tell the audience and what we'd leave up to the audience's interpretation. I think in all of our shows we play with that a little bit. I like some things being up to interpretation.
I think the fun part about immersive theater is that you can create some of it also, that you're creating, as an audience member, you're creating some of it. And I think that's like the fun part about it. But also, you sort of have to know, like, okay, what are the rules almost, or like the
core elements
of of the creation.
Yeah, I think that's something to put a lot of thought into because, we definitely want to leave that openness for interpretation. We want people to kind of come out, maybe even having slightly different versions of what they might have think happened, or fill in gaps. But of course, you need those. We need to make sure that they're not distracted by that. We're trying to figure that out during the show. I think too, with any art, there's some room for, you are creating the story when you read something or watch something every time, like your version or what you're taking from it, you are kind of in communication with it. And immersive theater just kind of magnifies that tenfold because you're actually in it. So I think that's a cool thing that we've been playing with. And I feel like we've gotten more of a sense of where we can pull back and where we might need to disclose, a bit more, and ways to do it so that we don't just have the this is what's happening scene where it can kind of flow as naturally as we can make it, which I think is definitely a learning process, probably in all kinds of writing, to kind of toy with. I feel like, too, I've learned a lot just as a writer working on these. I came from a very fiction prose background. I was writing like short stories and working on novels and stuff. So this year has been my foray into writing theater pieces at all. So I feel like there are definitely things I feel like as a writer that I think just with script writing in general, especially for immersive shows. I mean, I was writing The Truth as my first time scripting a play. And I remember thinking how much of this do I script? How much of this do I improvise? You know, do they improvise on their own? How much of this should the actors just be bringing to this? How much am I supposed to be doing? And when am I overstepping and like suffocating the show? And when am I just saying, just improvise the scene? Like, this is what you're supposed to do. And like leaving it too loose, you know, and when there are things where, areas where I want to have control over what's happening in the script or tell my story or our story collaboratively. And I feel like that's something I've been getting more comfortable with the more that I've been writing scripts. I think it was actually really good for us to do a traditional play, or good for me at least, to kind of squeeze in a more theater play in the middle there, where I was like, okay, no interaction, you know, little to no improvising. This is how this story unfolds, and this is what these people are going to say. After the Truth, which had a lot of audience interaction, so it was harder to script it.
Some of the scenes were
right.
very much improvised.
Yeah, I think
Truth.
We got a lot of actors who were great improvisers too.
Yeah.
So it was just sort of natural. Like they were awesome at improvising and building off the audience, and we liked the variation that could provide. But I feel like now I'm just as a writer feeling out more how much I script. I feel like I'm striking that balance for myself, at least, with how much I script, how much in the script is just then they do something that is like this, and let it evolve.
This sort of way.
Yeah. And I feel like, especially for the immersive shows, the script just evolves at our rehearsals anyway. You know,
That's true.
We are both at all the rehearsals, and sometimes when something's happening, I'm like, you know, one of us will talk to the other one and be like, you know what would be better than this happening is this. Like, and when we're in the moment and in the space, there's definitely that room for change.
Or I'll be like, oh, I sort of envisioned this scene more. Like, I don't know. I've been adding a lot more of like movement kind of stuff.
Yeah.
To both of these, for Forever and Devoted.
Yeah, and I think that's really been good for the show. It's hard to script it. Like, it's hard to write when movements happen. But I think it's something where, leaving room for that is really good.
Like, you can't just, like, imagine in your head, like, what it'll be. You sort of have to work it out. So you can't really write down, and then they do this movement thing.
Yeah. So I feel like, I definitely feel like we've kind of hit our stride with that. And I feel like we usually, when changes happen, we're usually on the same page pretty quickly with that, with us and the cast and everyone involved. It's worked out really well, where we let the show grow and we're open to feedback from each other, and that's been really cool.
One of the things that you just mentioned, basically about leaving it kind of open-ended, that's what I love, because the ending of your last show, can I say, won't be a spoiler at this point, right?
Probably not. I guess we're not redoing that last show, so Okay.
So when you get your throat slit, I took that as I was being killed in a memory. But when I told that to people, I had so many different people be like, that's how you took it? Like, really? And like, I think that's the coolest thing, because everybody can get something different. And then when there are differences of opinions, that leads to more discussion about the show. And then you just start talking about all the different parts of the show. And then they tell someone else, like, oh, Mike thought this. And and I just think that's such a cool idea, rather than, you are dead, this is what happened.
Right.
You know, that kind of thing.
As long as you know, like, you're not just like, who are all these people? Like, what am I supposed to be doing?
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And I think it's one of those things too where there are no wrong answers. Like, what you experience, like if you experience I died at the end, I'm like, you know, or I mean, some people I think go to us and they're like, what happened? I'm like, whatever you think. Like, I mean, I think that's kind of a cool part of it, because that is, I mean, it is an interactive show. You are part of the show. You are creating the story too. It's your story as much as it is our story. When we make it and people go to it, especially I feel like for these immersive shows. So I think that's like my favorite part of that.
Yeah.
I was so excited when Mike said that, like, because I completely interpreted the ending of the show completely differently.
What did you think happened?
Oh, because at that point you have been going through a sequence where she's revealing her memories. So I thought she was incorporating you into the memories, and that you became part of the family, and that she was destroying everything. So I thought it was a more symbolic rather than a realistic, I just killed somebody. But when he said that, I was like, oh, wait a minute, everything that I witnessed in the memories was realistic. Why did I choose to believe that act was a symbol rather than a reality? And when he said that, I was like, I have to rethink everything. It was so exciting for him to say that to me. I was like, oh, wow, that is such an open door now.
Right.
And my interpretation was much more simple than Mike's was. And it was a complete shock when that happened to me. I literally was, because you're repositioned, like I'm thinking of all the movement that led up to that moment where you're moved and then it happens. And I was expecting one more scene. Right. So for it to be truncated and ended so violently, so suddenly, I thought it was a symbolic ending. And then because of what happens afterwards, where you do engage other people in Kara's life at that point, and they try to put a shiny, happy face on it, that's why I took it as a symbol. So when Mike said that to me, I was so excited. I get to go home and think about this. I get to I really interpret wow, that's really fascinating. And as I think it's a compliment to the show and to the cast for what you guys created to be able to open up that door. And that's why it's one of the reasons I love talking about this stuff with Mike, is because of we do look at things very differently.
Right.
So that was really exciting when he said that.
If we didn't, we wouldn't have a podcast.
Probably. So one other question that we've said it several times: Shine On Collective. I totally changing the subject for a second. Where did the name come from?
Oh, it's Marlee's idea. She'll know.
Oh, I don't have a great story. I had it as an idea for a quartet name, honestly.
Oh, really? Going back to the scene.
Yeah, for a barbershop quartet, because they always have cool names. Mm-hmm. And then I just thought it would be appropriate because, I don't know, I sort of imagined the idea of shining a light on something,
That makes perfect sense with as we were talking about theme earlier.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my sister, who's been doing the graphic design and art for all of our posters and pretty much everything, she's our in-house. Hey, we're doing a show about this, graphic designer. And when she was making our logo, I think I was telling her maybe something because I feel like our, we don't do necessarily all horror, but we definitely fall into surreal genre, even dark stuff a lot. So I was maybe stars, moon, night sky kind of shining, not sunshine shining. I was thinking more moon,
right.
Moon shining or something. And she made this logo, I think, that kind of fits that kind of idea of a light in the dark, I guess.
In the dark, yeah, exactly.
Excellent.
Yeah. So we're going into October, and it's haunt season in LA, and there's always something to do. As someone that has been going to haunts for so many years, how are you balancing / sacrificing going to these things to create something of your own?
I know what you mean. Let's see. There will definitely be some sacrifices, I think, just because, the last 2 weekends of October is our show, and I'm probably going to be there for all of them. And I knew that going into it. Even going to the conventions, we would switch off at the booths so we could experience other people's shows, because I love going to these things. I love what other people in this community are doing. It's so cool. I think it helps us, too, that we're not just creating out of our own heads, but we're also we're seeing shows and we're participants in the community and we're fans of immersive shows.
Yeah,
immersive shows.
When we decided to do The Truth, we started seeing every immersive show in LA that we could.
Yeah, and this was back in January, February, and we were just trying to go to as many as we could while
I feel
working
we're
on
still
it.
doing that.
Yeah, I feel like I've probably been doing that for years before even doing it. Now it's just under the guise or excuse of it's
we
research, it's homework. Now we just have to feel out, because I think too, just feeling out what it's like to be an audience member and constantly thinking about what is it like to be an audience member? Sometimes you even forget working on the show when an audience member might be surprised by, or what they might feel, or what they might want more of. And I feel just constantly being in that place. Plus, I love being an audience member in shows like this, so it's easy for me. But it's definitely busy. I've already planned out a lot of my schedule and my weekends. I've already told people that they shouldn't expect to see me for a couple of months unless it's at an event maybe. But yeah, there are definitely a couple of sacrifices I'm sure I'll have to make. I think, I love what Alone does, and I think they're just doing one night only, and I'm I bet it's going to be a night of our show. I'll have to catch them at the next one. Or there are certain companies where I'm I'll see, when they post dates. I may or may not be able to make it. But for the most part, I mean, part of it is nice because LA Haunt season kind of never ends, but when it really kicks into gear, it kind of starts in September. So I've already we both did Tension last night. I did Screenshot Productions, Bordeaux. I'm gonna say it wrong. Bordeaux Thodol.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. Yeah, and we've started kind of making our rounds and doing what I can because I definitely want to be there for things. I'm doing Creep LA. I'm really excited on Friday next week. I loved their stuff last year. So I started kind of planning things out. Our rehearsal schedule is already set, so I just started planning things out around that once we had set our rehearsal schedule so that I could still go to some of these things. So there will definitely be some sacrifices, and this will be pretty much my life. This and work will be my life for the next month or so, but I've braced myself for it.
We'll be missing some Halloween parties.
Oh yeah, we might be missing some parties. Who needs social lives?
So I think we are pretty much out of questions, but do you have any final thoughts or shout outs or anything like that?
I guess really, I guess a big thank you to people who have come out to the show so far. As a new company, I feel like I don't know if people understand how grateful I am that they're giving us a shot and coming out to see what we're doing. And a lot of them have responded with a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of great feedback and just a lot of people who, especially 2 people who have come to either maybe all 3 shows so far, who have followed us. It's really exciting, I think, as creators, to connect with people who are really bringing the shows to life themselves too, and really bringing our theater company, I feel like, together. Like I mentioned, like Tension Experience people are awesome. I mean, like you mentioned, I think that they really helped us when we put social media sites out there by responding, or when Cara had an email address. Like people who have interacted, engaged, and followed, and people who want to play with us, I guess, people who want to play along and are into that. Really make it like explode. If we made a Facebook page and nobody cared, it wouldn't have the energy and the energy that really even carries into the show that it does. So I think, I guess if I was to give a shout out, it's just, thanks so much to people who have been giving us a shot our first year and have really made it this something that we can continue to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that went to Forever and bought tickets for Devoted, and it's so exciting to see them want to come back.
Yeah.
Want more. That's amazing. Yeah. And also that saw the truth and then are coming to Devoted.
Yeah, that's been really cool. There's some people who
awesome too.
Stuck with us. That's really neat. And for people who have seen Forever who are coming to Devoted, they might get some special something. I don't want to overhype it or do anything crazy, but we've definitely been keeping in mind people who are coming to both, and ways that we can personalize this even more for them, or just little touches that we can give them, kind of as almost thank yous for for sticking through the show for all of these chapters.
So Devoted is in October, and when are the dates for that?
I believe it's 21st through 30th on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights. We still have some tickets available for the second weekend.
Yes.
And where can people find tickets?
shineoncollective.com/devoted.
And can you tell people your other social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, things like that?
Sure. You can find us on Facebook as the Shine On Collective. I hope I get these right. You can find us on Facebook as the Shine On Collective, and on Twitter as @ShineOnShows. Our website is shineoncollective.com.
And you can follow Cara on Facebook. Her name is Cara Darling.
Yeah, her name is Cara Darling. She's on Instagram as Your Darling Cara as well.
And we definitely recommend everyone follow Cara.
Oh, yes, please do follow Cara. She'll be posting more things soon. Leading up to the October show.
She told us.
Yes, so we've been told.
And it's Cara with a C, not a K.
Oh, yes, good distinction.
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you, Anna and Marlee, so much. This has been awesome.
Yeah, sincerely appreciate you coming and talking to us. And we were excited to have you because you are a new company that's causing a lot of excitement within the haunt community, obviously, and we're so happy to see you branching out and bringing in theater people into this world as well. I like the fact that you're straddling these 2 worlds and you're doing it really well, and you've been so prolific this year. Like, congratulations and best of luck with everything that's coming up.
Oh, thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks for having us. We're both avid listeners, so it's exciting
Yes.
for us to be here.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you.
we can't wait to see what you have next. It's so exciting.
Yeah, we're excited about this one too. Thanks.
Again, we would like to thank Marlee and Anna both for coming out and answering a few of our questions and telling us more about the process of developing the Shine On Collective and their shows.
Yeah, we're really excited to see where they're headed next because they have so much momentum behind them and all of their shows have been great. And I can't wait to see what they come up with next.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to watching them grow. I know in the interview, Anna gave us the basic information, but Mike, would you like to repeat the information for Shine On Collective?
Sure, you can find them on the web at shineoncollective.com, on Facebook, The Shine On Collective, and on Twitter, Shine On Shows. And for our info, you can find us at myhauntlife.com, on Facebook, myhauntlife, Twitter, myhauntlife, and if you'd like to reach out to us personally, you can email me at mike@myhauntlife.com or russell@myhauntlife.com with 2 S's and 2 L's.
Thank you again to Anna and Marlee for joining us. We really appreciate the interview. And I guess that wraps it up, right, Mike?
Yeah, so thank you for listening. I'm Mike.
And I'm Russell.
See ya. Do you have any more questions?
No.
All right, so, do you have any? So, this is how it happens. This is the magic behind the scenes.
That's going to be on the outtake.
Yeah.